Welcome, everyone. I am Reverend Jessica Starr Rockers, and this is Eagle Harbor Congregational Church. I am an ordained Unitarian Universalist minister. I live here on Bainbridge Island, and I actually work in this church as the administrative pastor. We have come together this afternoon to honor and celebrate the life of Betty Herman and to mourn her death. This is sacred time we've set apart, time to share poetry, music, and stories from a life lived with both joy and sorrow. Betty was a woman who did not shy away from the fullness of life, nor from the sacred truth of death. Today we remember the whole life, its griefs and its gladness, and we hold all of her life together with love. So we're here to say goodbye, to offer our love for Betty and to gather memories that will carry us through in the days to come. And we are here to surround her family with our care and support. Her partner, Wade Biggs, her sister, Winona Stewart, her brother, Steve Lush, and his wife, Martha Snow, her nieces and nephews, Gretchen Lush, Robin Bowman, Jeff Lush, Ryan and Natalie Lush, Sally Snow, Katie Ray, Pamela Johnson, and her husband, Brent Benrud, Chris Johnson, and Betty's great-niece and great-nephew, Tess Benrud and Willie Johnson. Betty has a big, loving family, and it's beautiful to see all of them here today. May they feel the strength of this community as we hold them in our hearts. Following the service, Betty's family would like to invite you to the fellowship hall for a reception to continue our sharing time. And at that time, friends will have a chance to have the microphone and share some of their memories as well. So thank you, everybody, for being here today. I'd like to invite Robin up to light our chalice. In Unitarian Universalist congregations across the continent, when people gather to worship, a flame is lit within a chalice as a symbol of faith. The light of our chalice represents the divine light, the sacred light within each of us, and the light of this gathered community. Today, the flame is lit in honor of Betty Herman, symbolizing the light of her life, a light that shone brightly to all who knew her.
Good afternoon. Today I've had the opportunity already to meet some of Betty's closest friends and folks who learned a lot from her, as did I. I'm going to read a poem, and then I'll probably be back up later to chat your ears off. But this poem is called Life After Death by Laura Gilpin. These things I know, how the living go on living, and how the dead go on living with them. So that in a forest, even a dead tree casts a shadow, and the leaves fall one by one, and the branches break in the wind, and the bark peels off slowly, and the trunk cracks, and the rain seeps in through the cracks, and the trunk falls to the ground, and the moss covers it. And in the spring, the rabbits find it and build their nest inside the dead tree, so that nothing is wasted in nature or in love. Thank you.
Please rise in body or in spirit, and let us sing together within the spirit of life. We are here today, gathered in the spirit of love and community to share in a holy moment. This sacred time set apart to honor the life of Betty Eileen Herman, a woman whose quiet strength and generous heart left a lasting imprint on every community she touched. Although I did not have the privilege of knowing Betty personally, through the stories shared by those who loved her, it is clear she was a person of deep compassion, purpose, and kindness. From her early days in Minnetonka to her final years in Poulsbo, Betty lived a life shaped by service, guided by empathy, and enriched by meaningful relationships. Her calling to work with elders, walking alongside them through life's later chapters, was not only a profession, but a profound ministry of care and dignity. Human life is precious, and one of the reasons it is so precious is that it ends. Death is a part of life. Betty understood this, and she held this truth gently, wisely, as something sacred. She has now crossed a threshold, just as she helped so many others do before her. And so it becomes our turn to accompany her in spirit and in love along this next part of her journey. We cannot hug her or hold her hand or look into her eyes, but still something remains. There is a wonder and a mystery we cannot deny. Betty's spirit is alive in each of you who knew her and loved her. When her stories are told, when laughter and tears are shared, Betty continues. In grieving her loss and celebrating her life, we help carry her forward, and we surround her beloved family with love as they too move through the sacred transition of living in a world changed by her absence. It is never easy to speak of death. When someone we love dies, we are brought face to face with the hard truths of our own mortality. The loss of this thoughtful and caring woman is profound. Betty was deeply cherished by those gathered here, by her family, and her passing brings deep grief. But death is part of every human story. Betty knew this. She walked beside others through this passage countless times. And even as we mourn her death, we also give thanks because Betty lived. She lived a beautiful, giving, and present life. She embraced her calling, deepened her relationships, and served her community with a steady grace. In her honor, we can choose to live more fully, to hold our loved ones closer, and to meet each day with greater presence. Betty's journey reminds us that discovering one's true calling can unfold across a lifetime. She created a life rich with meaning, shaped by adventure, by enduring friendship, and by the quiet joys of home. In her work and in her wanderings, in her love and her laughter, she found what so many of us seek: connection, purpose, and peace. In a world that can feel hurried or uncertain, Betty's life calls us to slow down and tend to one another. May we, like Betty, seek to meet others with compassion and offer our gifts generously. In honoring her, may we also recommit ourselves to living lives of meaning, connection, and love. And now, in the spirit of Betty's love for life's great voyage, Brent Benrud and Tess Benrud will share a song that speaks to both the mystery and the beauty of that journey. Blue Boat Home.
Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, sing the sky my sailor's song, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim soul, making our way by the lights of the heavens in a beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, read the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor nor port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
I'd like to invite Willie Johnson to come forward and give us a reading.
What is Success? By Ralph Waldo Emerson. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the infection of children, to earn the approbation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to give of oneself, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to have played and laughed with enthusiasm and sung with exultation, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. And I think that we can all feel that by that criteria, we've shared in those merits and know that she has succeeded and has contributed to our own.
So this is a moment for the family to come forward and share words of remembrance. This is a fluid sharing, and so I want just to invite whoever feels called first to share, and you can invite the next person up. Come sit down.
I'm Pamela Johnson, Betty's aunt. Betty's niece. Well, there you go. She was much younger than she looked. Betty was not just my aunt. She was a dear, dear friend. But I didn't know how much we truly had in common until I was cleaning out her house. Like me, Betty believed that you should have a pair of scissors and a box of Kleenex in every single room. That's not surprising because these two things really did epitomize what Betty was like. The Kleenex because she was always there to comfort whoever was in pain, whether it was just to sit in silence with them or to hold them close. She was the master of that. And the scissors represent the tools that Betty used both to create connection and to shape the conversation. Betty was all about trying to make the world a different place, how to shape it so that people could look at things from a different perspective, and she certainly did that with me. Betty died when I was out of the country, unfortunately, but I wrote these words to her and read them over the telephone to her just before she died. And these words capture exactly how I felt about her. My dearest Betty, before you go, I wanted you to know what enormous influence you have been in my life. You have modeled what it meant to be a strong woman who joyfully made helping others one of your main priorities. You approach every situation with compassion and, when appropriate, and sometimes not, with gentle humor. You have always, always been there when I needed you, with a listening ear and a non-judgmental heart. I often tell myself to channel my inner Betty when I am in difficult situations, and especially when I'm frustrated. You give excellent advice, but don't ask it unless I ask for it. But don't give it unless I ask for it. You are great at making me see things from a different point of view. You give great hugs. I know I will miss you immeasurably, but I also know that I always have you with me just by conjuring your spirit. You lived a valuable life and helped hundreds of people, both in big and small ways. This is a life well lived. Go peacefully, and I look forward to knowing you in the next one. I love, love, love you.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I am Betty's uncle. No, I mean. And Betty was my cool Aunt Betty. And she was, as we have already said, very helpful and willing to be of service if she thought that you needed it or if you expressed that to her. And there were many times, and sorry, I've just lost my notes, when I was a child that she was very good at talking to me like I was a person and not talking down to me. And we joked with each other a lot. Then as I got older, we would joke more, and a number of those jokes are not really appropriate for this, but one of her favorite ones was that, what's the difference between a drunk and a stoner? Difference is that a drunk runs red lights, a stoner stops at green ones. And she was also very supportive throughout my life and in my adult life. And actually, when I graduated from architecture school in Texas, it was right into a recession. And so I went into a different job, kind of related, but she was ready to remodel the house in Edina. And so she gave me my first solo project. And it went well, and she was very pleased with the results, and so was I. Ted thought that perhaps it cost a little too much. And once I was married and had a son, Willie, who read the poem, she and Willie bonded just in an incredible way. And Willie and Ted as well. And they would take him for days, sometimes weeks. And that was a very positive thing in his life, and it was really nice for us to have them building that bond. And so that was always grateful that she was that, close to him. She also took a lot of care and was great friends with her mother, my grandmother Winnie. And Winnie lived at the end in Excelsior, and Betty was living in Edina. And I ate a lot of meals with them. I think all of us had a lot of meals with them. And I'm sure most of you know that she was a really great cook. And so there was one time that she had invited Grandma Winnie over for dinner, and my grandmother called to talk about the meal and said that she was going to bring over some potatoes because she found a great bargain. And my grandmother really loved finding a bargain. And Aunt Betty said, "Well, don't worry about it, Mom. I've got some potatoes here. You know, we'll have them here." Grandma Winnie said, "Well, no, I found this great deal on these potatoes." And Betty said, "Well, no, I got potatoes here." Grandma Winnie said, "I got this great." That went on for 2 or 3 times. Finally, Betty said, "All right, Mother, because I know that to you, cheap is better than free." And so obviously I'm going to miss Betty greatly. I do miss her greatly. I was fortunate enough to be able to spend a week with her in May, and we knew that there were some issues health-wise, but like I said, she was always of great service to me, and I think about her daily. And I was and am proud to be her nephew. Thank you.
know this day has been coming, and I've been preparing for it. But I found myself procrastinating when it came to writing a eulogy. And I think because it felt like that would be a permanent closure. Do I still have time to write one? I sort of ran out of time. So I just thought I would talk about who Betty was to me and give each one of you a chance to think about who she was to you. I also want to say that the pastor sort of stole everything I was going to say, so we'll just pretend I'm going to be as eloquent as she was. But Betty was my aunt. She is my aunt. I learned so much from her, and I didn't know her very well as a child. Geographically, we just weren't close enough to spend time together. But as I got older, we spent more time together and we both traveled more. So I got to know her and how special a human being she was. She really modeled some wonderful life lessons for me about compassion, forgiveness, helping people who need help, even if you don't necessarily get along with them or, if a human being needs help, Betty was willing to help them. She was loving to so many. And she fought for people who couldn't fight for themselves. She cared for everyone she knew. She was able to bond with children as well as she did with adults. And as you'll see in the slide presentation, dogs. She loves animals. She loved animals. But she was just, I always saw her as someone who was fiercely loyal, who was deeply loving, who was truly compassionate, and who just knew how to care for other human beings. So I hope she knows that we all feel very cared for. And we miss her, although it feels like she's here with us now. And for all of the stories that everyone here has, that they carry with them about Betty, she's here with us. Thank you.
I was asked several times to say something, and several times I refused because I wasn't sure I could get through it. But I sure am grateful to see everybody here who loved Betty as I did. I met Betty at a birthday party for a neighbor's grandchild who was 9 years old. The theme of the party was, "What is your superpower?" Because the child was into action figures. And I thought about it, and so on my name tag that we were all obliged to wear at that party, I put down, "My name is Wade, and my superpower is BSing." And apparently that caught Betty's eye. We were standing in the food line outdoors on a warm June day, bright sunlight, green lawn, barbecues going. And this woman walked up to me, and she was wearing a trench coat buttoned to her knees. She had a scarf around her neck, and she had mittens on her hand. Anybody who knows Betty knows what that's all about. And we were standing in line together for a few minutes, and she struck up a conversation with me. I found out much later she intended to sit down with me and have lunch. But a couple of ladies that she had come to the party with ran up and grabbed her by the arm and said, "We've got a table over here," and they dragged her away. I didn't think anything of it. She was one of many strangers that I had had a conversation with that day. And about 2-3 weeks later, I got an email. It was from this strange woman signed Betty Herman, and it said, "We were standing in line at the food line, and I got dragged away, and so I think I owe you the pleasure of my company for lunch." I didn't know if I wanted to get tangled up with this woman or not. But we arranged a lunch date on neutral ground, and it went well enough that we did it again. And pretty soon, we really got to know each other. And then I realized what a person she was. Later on, you'll see some slides up here, some pictures. And one of my favorites, and the original's in the other room if you'll get a chance to look at it, is a picture of Betty standing in Alaska next to a wall of the Raptor Center, an organization that helps and heals and releases into the wild eagles and other raptors that are injured. And there's a full-size silhouette painting of an eagle with wings outstretched over her head, and her arms are out straight because the sign behind her that you really can't read says, "How big is your wingspan?" And Betty's wingspan was enormous because it's captured all of us, touched all our lives. She gave me a couple of great gifts that I have to mention. One of them, she gave me a family. And friends. And she gave me the 5 happiest years of my life. And that's how we remember Betty.
So my name is Ryan Lush, and I am Betty's nephew. Nailed it. Yeah, thanks. It's so great to see everyone here today. Thank you all for coming. I wanted to share one very specific aspect of Betty's personality, and it's what a wonderful listener she was. Having a conversation with my Aunt Betty was just like receiving the best warm hug. As my wife Natalie pointed out here fairly recently, that at family gatherings, Betty always took the time to make sure she spoke with every single person there, that she gave everyone their due time and made sure that everyone was heard and seen. This may have been enormously complicated because she somehow managed to appear equally interested in learning from my brother Jeff and I how to build a lean-to shelter, or the difference between a supercharger and a turbocharger, or who was dating what boy, or equally as interested in any of those things as how somebody's kids were doing, or how their health was, or any number of other important topics. So that was a superpower of hers, was her true ability to listen to people. And as long as people have had opinions, we've all been very quick to share them. I'm guilty of that as well. And that often comes at the cost of truly hearing the person across from you. Somebody starts to speak and immediately go, oh, I know something about that. You start to formulate a response and you stop listening. Not Betty. It didn't seem to matter what I would say. She would sit there patiently. She'd lean in. She'd pay attention. She'd ask questions. It made me feel really heard and really seen. And even when I was a little guy, that my thoughts and my opinions and that I mattered. And I always really knew that she cared. I know that this is a gift that she didn't just share with me. This is a gift that she's shared with everyone here in this room and more broadly. My dad might argue that she shared this gift more with some people than others. But my hope here is that for each of you who remembers her like I do, that you continue to choose to continue her legacy by sharing that gift with others, showing kindness and compassion to other people by truly listening to them. I know that the world was a better place with her in it, and that I love her and miss her dearly. And that, yeah, the world is a better place when people listen. Thank you.
I'm a distant relative of Betty's. I'm her brother, Steve.
Do that for you.
Thanks for coming. I didn't get a great deal of time to spend with Betty when she became an adult. We had tons of time together when we were kids, me mostly hiding out from my parents and Betty trying to cover for me. But what Betty accomplished in her life was really quite something, considering the difficult and tumultuous time she had as a young child. We had Winona, who was Betty's older sister, who was a high achiever. We had me, second child, who was that damn kid, where is he anyway? And we had Betty, the widget. And the reason that my dad called her the widget was she was this tiny little kid, seemingly very frail, who really flew under the radar. And later on, as everybody knows, she became quite a powerhouse in her own right. But in spite of the fact that she strove to keep out of the notice of our parents, she had a way of creating equity for herself. So because she was the youngest and the smallest and the quietest, she was often discounted to some extent. But she had her ways of getting even with people. the things one of the mechanisms that she used that was really, really effective, that knocked Winona and I both off our rails, was our dad was a gadget guy. And you could not find a gadget that was completely crazy that he wouldn't buy into. And one of the things that he bought was a thing called a blab-off. Yeah, and I can see Winona's head nodding. Yeah, I remember the blab-off. A blab-off. So this is back in the old days, around covered wagon times, when you had to actually get up and change the channel on a television, or if you wanted the volume higher or lower, you had to walk up to the television and turn it on and off. So my dad saw this thing advertised, a blab-off, which was essentially just a switch, so that when an advertisement came on television, you could just hit the blab-off, the sound would stop. But that didn't mean my dad would stop. The way that Betty would get even would be, she really wasn't that interested in television. She wanted to look at Archie comic books. So the whole family would be sitting there, she'd be reading Archie comic books, and if Winona or I had misbehaved in some way that Betty felt abused by, she would wait until Dad hit the blab off, and then she'd say, Dad, why doesn't ice sink to the bottom of the lake? And he'd go like this, hit the blab off, and he'd say, well, dear, and he'd start down the road. Winona and I would sit there with our eyes bugging out of our heads because we wanted the program to come back on. But it wasn't coming back on until there was a full explanation of exactly what's going on. Well, Betty always sat off to the side, looking at her comic book. She couldn't have cared less about the answer, but she'd be looking over at Winona and I. We'd be like that. Then, once everybody understood the physics involved, the program would come back on just in time to run the credits. So later on at night, Betty would say, Steve, did you enjoy that program this afternoon? Creep. So Betty had, and she was sort of like the fifth business, but Robertson Davies fans. She could read the room, spot the appropriate soft spot, and just climb in there and create mayhem. And she was really good at it. And she was wonderful about giving advice to anyone about anything. And she admitted to me, she said, I don't care if people take my advice or not, because I get gratification if they take my advice and I see that it works out well for them. And if they don't take my advice, I really enjoy watching them crash and burn. So, and further to what Wade was saying about Betty always being cold wherever she went. When Betty would come up for a visit, Marty would say to me, do not turn the heat down in the house. Leave it at 72. And I'd say, okay, I'll do that. But at night I'd sneak around and turn the light on. Betty'd come up, Marty, how did you sleep, dear? So we had this going on all the time. But to show you how toxic this actually was, she and Walt were up for a visit one time, and it was not a good time for Walt to come because his son had a big woodworking, his son was a woodworking contractor, had a big furniture making contract that he was working on, and Walt was very accomplished, probably not as much as Wade, but he was very good, and he was helping his son. So anyway, we were feeling a little bit anxious about it, and so I sat down next to Walt, and they were up for 3 days, I think, and this was the Sunday. And I said to Walt, I realize it's difficult for you to be up here because I know that your son's under the gun on this contract, but thank you for coming up. And he says, oh, I wouldn't miss this for the world. He says, this is so enjoyable. He says, it's like taking a master's class in sarcasm. And Betty and I both said, thank you. Yeah. So another, here's another example of how Betty was. She phoned me up one time, completely out of the blue. And I said, hello. We don't have call display on our phone. We still have dial-up phones. Did I do this? Yeah. Anyway, I said, hello? And she said, hi, I need some advice. And I said, this is your brother. And she said, oh, sorry, I must have butt dialed you. So that was Betty. She was a wonderful person, really sarcastic, loving, helpful, kind, generous. She was a much better sister than I deserved. That's for sure. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank Betty's family for sharing those wonderful stories of Betty. And I'd like to invite us all to rise in body or spirit and sing together, There Is More Love Somewhere. Please have a seat. Thank you. So let us enjoy a slideshow of Betty's life. invite you to join me in prayer. We bless you on your journey. We release old wounds and regrets. And mystery receives us when we die. Now I'd like to invite Chris Johnson, Brent Benrud, and Tess Benrud forward to sing a song. beautiful. So now we come to our chalice extinguishing. As we prepare to extinguish our chalice, let us acknowledge the deep sorrow of this moment. Saying goodbye to someone we love is never easy. Betty has died, and her presence, her voice, her hands, her laughter will no longer be with us in the way that we've known. This is a tender, painful truth, and we hold it with heavy hearts. Betty will be deeply and dearly missed. And yet her spirit endures. It lives on in the love she gave so freely, in the kindness she offered without hesitation, and in the care she extended to so many. Betty's presence remains in each of you, in the memories you carry, the lives she touched, and the lasting imprint of her compassion. May you find comfort in that love, in the arms of one another, and in the strength of community. And may you know that even as life ends, love does not. Death cannot take that from you. Though each of us must one day pass from this life, the love that holds us all, the love that weaves through the universe and binds us to one another, that endures. May that love surround you now and bring peace in the days ahead. And now, please, if you are able, rise and bow to your spirit. I invite you to repeat after me. Spirit of life, receive from us.
Spirit of life, receive from us.
The person of Betty Herman.
The person of Betty Herman.
Let the best which was in her.
Let the best which was in her.
Be renewed in strength in us.
Be renewed in strength in us.
May we now give to others.
May we now give to others.
The love we can no longer give to her.
The love we can no longer give to her.
For the lives we lead.
For the lives we lead.
Are now her honor and memorial.
Are now her honor and memorial.
Amen. The poet Mary Oliver reminds us that to live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes, to let it go. Unto the purifying flame has Betty been committed, freed now to enter into the spirit of our hearts and eternity beyond seeing. May there come to us who live on a sense of peace, a peace born of the faith that somehow, though we may not see how, this life now ended is caught up in the vast infinitude of which we get but a glimpse, a faith that Betty has become a part of that oneness which pervades all existence. May it be so. Go in peace. Amen. Ashe. Blessed be. Our postlude is going to play shortly, and I'd like to invite the family to exit first in these front two rows, and then after that, everyone else. Thank you for being here.